AITA for telling my husband I will call the police on his mother if she doesn't get out of my house by Friday? I never thought I would be the person airing my dirty laundry on the internet, but I am shaking right now and I have nowhere else to turn. My friends are trying to be diplomatic, and my husband is acting like I've grown a second head. I feel like I'm trapped in a funhouse mirror. For background, my husband, David, 43M, and I, 41F, have been married for 15 years. We have 2 kids, ages 12 and 9. David's mother, Barbara, 72F, has always been difficult. She's the type of woman who smiles while she insults your weight, your cleaning, or your job, but she does it in such a concerned troll way that if you call her out, you look like the aggressor. She is a professional victim. 3 months ago, Barbara slipped on some ice in her driveway and fractured her ankle. It was a nasty break that required surgery and plates. David was a total mess. He's an only child and his father passed away 10 years ago, so he feels this immense, crushing guilt whenever she's unhappy. She called him sobbing from the hospital, claiming she couldn't possibly manage the stairs in her townhouse alone. Against my better judgment, but because I love my husband, I agreed she could stay in our first-floor guest room for 3 weeks. Just until she was weight-bearing. That was 3 months ago. She is now fully mobile. She is walking without a crutch. She is driving. But she is still in my house. It started small. She'd rearrange the kitchen cabinets while I was at work because it just made more sense this way. I'd come home to find my spices moved, my pans stacked incorrectly so they got scratched, and my specific system for school lunches completely dismantled. When I asked her to stop, she'd tear up and say, "I'm just trying to be useful. I feel like such a burden." Then David would look at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. "She's just trying to help, babe," he'd say. "Cut her some slack, she's lonely." But last week, things escalated. I work from home 2 days a week. I was on a Zoom call with a major client, door closed, do not disturb sign up. Barbara walked right in, wearing nothing but a towel, asking if I had any heavy cream. My client saw her. I was mortified. I muted myself and hissed at her to get out. Later, she told David the first screamed at her and humiliated her. Tonight was the breaking point. I came home from the grocery store to find she had hired a handyman, without asking us, to paint the guest room. Her room. They were painting it a pale lavender. I lost it. I asked her what the hell she was doing. She looked at me, blinking those watery blue eyes, and said, "Well, the beige was so depressing, and since I'm going to be here a while, I wanted to feel at home." "A while?" I asked. "Barbara, the plan was 3 weeks. You're healed." "David said I could stay until I felt ready," she replied, flashing that tight, little smirk she does when she knows she's won. "My townhouse is so lonely. And the boys love having Nana here." I waited for David to get home. I dragged him into our bedroom and demanded to know what she was talking about. He wouldn't make eye contact. He started rubbing the back of his neck, which is his classic avoiding conflict tell. "She's getting older, honey," he mumbled. "She's scared to be alone. We have the space. It's not a big deal." "It is a big deal," I yelled. "She walks in on my meetings, she criticizes my parenting, she rearranges my house, and now she's painting the walls? She needs to go. This weekend." "I can't kick my mother out," he said, finally looking at me, but his eyes were cold. "She's family. You're being incredibly selfish. It's just paint." I told him if she isn't out by Friday, I'm calling the police to have her removed as a trespasser. I know that's legally doubtful since she's been here 3 months, but I was seeing red. He called me a heartless bitch and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. I can hear them whispering downstairs right now. I know she's spinning some story about how unstable I am. Am I losing my mind? Is this normal? Update 1. It's been 4 days since my original post. Things have gone from bad to I need a lawyer. First off, thank you to everyone who warned me about tenancy laws. You were right. I looked it up for my state, and because she's been here over 30 days and receives mail here, which I didn't realize she had started doing until yesterday, she is legally a tenant. I can't just kick her out. I feel sick. The morning after my post, the house was eerily quiet. David had left for work early without saying goodbye. Barbara was in the kitchen making pancakes for my kids. "Good morning, sunshine," she chirped. "David said you were having a rough time last night. Hormones can be so tricky at our age." I'm 41. I am not going through menopause, but she loves to imply that any emotion I show is biological hysteria. I poured coffee and tried to stay calm. "Barbara, we need to talk about your townhouse. You're healed. It's time to go home." She flipped a pancake, not even looking at me. "Oh, didn't David tell you? I rented it out." I dropped my mug. It shattered. Hot coffee went everywhere. You what? I signed a 6-month lease with a lovely traveling nurse. It seems silly to leave it empty, and the extra income helps. Plus, David insisted. I left the mess on the floor, which she tisked at, and went to my car to call David. He didn't answer. I called his office line. I called his cell again. Finally, he picked up. Did you know she rented her house out? I screamed. Stop yelling, he hissed. I'm at work. Did you know? Yes, he sighed. She was worried about money. The medical bills, the heating costs. Look, it just made sense. It's only for 6 months. We can survive 6 months. You made a unilateral decision to move your mother in for half a year without consulting your wife? I consulted you. He claimed. We talked about her staying until she was ready. She wasn't ready. That is a lie and you know it. I hung up. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at a hotel. I needed space to think. I texted the kids to check in, and my 12-year-old son replied, Nana says you went to a spa to calm down. Can we have pizza? She told my children I was at a spa to calm down. I went back home yesterday determined to lay down the law. If she stays, there are rules. No entering our room. No rearranging. No comments. When I walked in, the lavender paint job in the guest room was finished. And she had moved more furniture. My grandmother's antique rocking chair, the one I nursed both babies in, was gone from the living room. Where is the chair? I asked. Barbara was on the couch, watching TV. Oh, it was so creaky. I put it in the garage. David agreed it was a hazard. I went to the garage. It wasn't there. I stormed back inside. Where is it, Barbara? Maybe the Goodwill truck took it, she said vaguely. I had them come by to pick up some of David's old clothes. It might have gotten mixed in. I think I blacked out from rage. I screamed at her. I told her she was a thief and a liar. David came home right in the middle of it. He saw me screaming, saw his mother crying into a tissue, and immediately stepped between us. That's enough. He yelled at me. You are terrorizing her. She gave away my grandmother's chair. It was an accident. David roared. It's just a chair. Why do you care more about furniture than people? I grabbed my keys. Because the furniture doesn't gaslight me, David. I'm currently in the guest bedroom of my friend's house. I've been here for 24 hours. David has sent me exactly one text. When you're ready to apologize to Mom, come home. Until then, don't bother. I called the local Goodwill donation centers. No record of a pickup from our address. She didn't donate it. She hid it, sold it, or destroyed it. I don't know what to do. My kids are there with them. I feel like she's systematically erasing me from my own life, and my husband is handing her the eraser. Update 2. It's been a week since I left. I wish I had good news. I wish I could say David came to his senses. I went back to the house on Tuesday while they were both gone, David at work and Barbara at physical therapy. I needed to get my clothes and check on things. The locks were changed. My key wouldn't turn. I stood on my own front porch, panic rising in my throat. I pounded on the door, thinking maybe the kids were homesick. Nothing. I called a locksmith. Since my name is on the deed, he opened it for me. When I got inside, the house felt different. Not just the furniture. The atmosphere. It smelled like her perfume, that cloying, powdery floral scent, everywhere. Even in my bedroom. I went upstairs to pack a bag. My closet had been rifled through. My jewelry box was open. And sitting on my nightstand was a pamphlet for anger management and hormonal balance. I checked the garage again for the chair. Still nothing. But I found something else. In the recycling bin, buried under some cardboard, was a receipt from a local storage unit facility. Dated 3 days ago. Under David's name. I drove straight to the storage place. I couldn't access the unit without a code, but the manager confirmed David had rented a unit recently. I waited in the parking lot for 3 hours. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping he'd show up. He didn't. But I got a notification on our joint bank account. A withdrawal for $5,000. I called the bank immediately. They said it was a cashier's check made out to Barbara. I drove to David's office. I didn't care about making a scene anymore. I walked past the receptionist and into his office. He turned white when he saw me. We need to talk, I said. He hung up the phone. You broke into the house? It's my house, David. You changed the locks? Mom didn't feel safe, he said. He actually said that. She thinks you're having a breakdown. She's worried you might hurt the kids. Hurt the kids? Are you insane? You've been erratic, he said, using his reasonable man voice. Leaving for days. Screaming. Obsessing over chairs. Where is the chair, David? Is it in the storage unit? He froze. I don't know what you're talking about. I found the receipt. And I saw the withdrawal. You gave her $5,000? For what? He stood up, looking cornered. She has debts, okay? Her credit cards were maxed out. She was going to lose the townhouse if she didn't rent it. I'm trying to help her get back on her feet so she can leave. You told me she rented it because she was lonely. Now it's because she's broke? It's complicated. It's not complicated. She's bleeding us dry. And you locked me out. I am protecting my family, he said. I am your family. I yelled. Not right now, he said quietly. Right now, you're just hostile. I left before I punched him. I went to pick up the kids from school. I needed to see them. When my daughter saw me, she hesitated. She didn't run to me. Mom? She asked. Nana said you were sick. I'm not sick, baby. She said you have a brain problem that makes you angry. My blood ran cold. She is actively poisoning my children against me. I took the kids for ice cream. I didn't take them back to the house, I took them to my friend's place. Then I texted David, I have the kids. We are safe. Do not come here. He blew up my phone with threats to call the cops for kidnapping. Then Barbara called me. I answered. I shouldn't have, but I did. You were confusing those poor children, she purred. Just bring them home, dear. We can discuss your treatment options. Where is my chair, Barbara? There was a long pause. It had termites, she said. We did you a favor. She hung up. I'm meeting with a divorce attorney tomorrow morning. I don't want a divorce. I love the man I married. But that man seems to be gone, replaced by this puppet. But here is the twist. My friend is a real estate agent. She did a little digging on Barbara's townhouse. It's not rented. It's listed for sale, with a pending offer. Barbara didn't rent her house, she sold it. She has nowhere to go. She never intended to leave. Update 3. The last 48 hours have been a blur of lawyers, screaming, and a revelation that made me physically vomit. I met with the lawyer, Sarah. She was a shark. I told her everything, the lock change, the $5,000, the brain problem comments, the house sale. Sarah told me to file for emergency temporary custody and exclusive possession of the marital home immediately. She said David changing the locks was a massive legal error on his part. While I was in her office, my phone started buzzing. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable, honey, is everything okay? There's a moving truck in your driveway. My heart stopped. I drove over. Sure enough, a massive two-man and a truck van was in the driveway. But they weren't taking things out. They were moving things in. Barbara's furniture. David was standing in the driveway, directing them. I couldn't help myself. I got out of the car and walked up. What is this? I asked, my voice trembling. David jumped. He looked exhausted. I thought you were at your friend's. You were moving her in permanently, I said. She sold her place, David said, looking at his shoes. The closing is next week. She has nowhere else to go. She told me she rented it. She lied because she knew you'd react like this. David shouted. She knew you'd be heartless. And the $5,000? Movers. Storage fees. Closing costs. That is our money, David. Our savings. Barbara walked out of the house, holding a glass of my wine. Oh, you're here, she said, looking bored. David, tell the movers to be careful with the vanity. It's older than she is. She pointed at me with the wine glass. Something inside me snapped. Enjoy the house, Barbara, I said. I'm done. Don't be dramatic, David scoffed. Just come inside and we can figure out where to put your stuff so Mom has room. My stuff? You mean the stuff you haven't thrown out or put in storage? I turned to walk away. Wait, David said, grabbing my arm. Where are you going? To pick up the kids. And then I'm filing for divorce. He laughed. You won't divorce me. You can't afford to. Watch me. I went to pick up the kids from school. The secretary looked at me with pity. Mrs., last name, your husband picked them up an hour ago. He came with his mother. He said there was a family emergency. I called David. Straight to voicemail. I called Barbara. Straight to voicemail. I drove back to the house. The moving truck was gone. The car was in the driveway. The doors were locked. I pounded on the door. Give me my children. Barbara opened the second floor window. She looked down at me like I was a peasant. They're resting, she called down. They've had a traumatic week with their mother acting so unstable. David and I agree it's best if you take some time away to heal. I am calling the police. I screamed. Go ahead, she said. We have the text messages where you threatened to kidnap them. And we have the recording of you screaming in the driveway just now. We're just protecting them. She closed the window. I called the police. They came, talked to David, and then came back to me. Ma'am, he's the father. He's allowed to have the children in the home. There's no court order. This is a civil matter. He says you're welcome to come in if you calm down, but he says you're being aggressive. Maybe you should go cool off somewhere. I am sitting in my car down the street. I can see the lights on in my house. I just got a text from my son's iPad. It wasn't my son. We're having pizza. David is finally smiling again. Don't ruin this for him. I don't know if I can survive until Monday. Update 4. I'm writing this from a hospital waiting room. No, I didn't hurt myself. And no, I didn't hurt them. Saturday morning, I was a mess. I was parked down the street like a stalker. I saw David's car leave. I figured he was going to the store. This was my chance. I knew Barbara couldn't physically stop me if David wasn't there. I drove up and used the garage keypad. I got into the house. It was quiet. Kids? I yelled. Mom? It was my son, Leo. His voice sounded small. I ran upstairs. The kids were in their rooms, looking terrified. We're not allowed to come out until Nana says, my daughter whispered. Get your shoes, I said. We're leaving. As we were rushing down the stairs, Barbara came out of the kitchen. She wasn't using her cane. She wasn't limping. She looked strong and angry. You are not taking them, she hissed, blocking the way. Move, Barbara. You are unfit. You are hysterical. She lunged for me and grabbed my hair. I pushed her. I didn't punch her, I just shoved her away so I could get my children out. She stumbled back, hit the wall, and then slid down it, clutching her chest. My heart. She wailed. You hit me. My heart. Leo started crying. Mom, you hurt Nana. I didn't hurt her, she's faking. Go to the car. I can't breathe. Barbara gasped, turning a shade of red that actually looked alarming. I hesitated. That 1 second of hesitation cost me everything. David walked in the front door. He had only gone to get gas. He saw his mother on the floor, clutching her chest. He saw me standing over her. He saw the kids crying. What did you do? He whispered. She grabbed me. I pushed her off. Help me. David. She tried to kill me. Barbara wheezed. David looked at me with pure hatred. I have never seen that look on his face. Get out. David, she is acting. She's having a heart attack. Get out before I kill you. He knelt beside her, frantically dialing 911. I ran to the car with the kids, but I couldn't just leave. I couldn't drive away while an ambulance was on its way. What if it was real? What if I had actually killed her? The ambulance arrived and they loaded her up. David went with them. He left the kids with me because he had no other choice, but he screamed, if you leave the state, I will have you arrested. So, I followed the ambulance. I dropped the kids off at my sister's house, she lives about 20 minutes away, because I didn't want them to see any more of this. Then, I came here. I've been in this waiting room for 18 hours. David finally came out about an hour ago. He looked like a ghost. Is she okay? I asked. He didn't answer. He just sat down 3 chairs away from me. It wasn't a heart attack, he said, his voice completely flat. I told you, it was a panic attack. Induced by stress. David, But, he interrupted, pulling a crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket. The doctors found something else while they were running tests. Her toxicology screen. My stomach dropped. What? She has high levels of. I can't even say it. He rubbed his face with both hands. She's been taking rat poison. What? Warfarin. It's a blood thinner, but in high doses. She's been taking way too much. And she isn't prescribed it. I stared at him, stunned. Why would she do that? Because it causes bruising, David said, finally looking at me. Easy bruising. It makes you look sickly. And if you fall, it makes the bleeding worse. He handed me the paper. It was a printout of the lab results. She's been poisoning herself, he whispered. To stay sick. To stay with us. David. The chair. The lease. The lies. He nodded slowly. I went back to the house to get her overnight bag. I looked in her purse for her insurance card and I found a receipt for a storage unit. But it wasn't my unit. It was another one, in her name. What was in it? I went there. The code was my birthday. He looked like he was going to be sick. Your chair is there. Your jewelry. Photos of us that she took off the walls. And a journal. He started crying then, ugly, heaving sobs. She wrote it all down. How she was going to get you out. How she was going to be the only woman in my life again. She planned the fall on the ice. She planned the sale of her house. I moved to sit next to him, but I didn't touch him. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm so sorry, he wept. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. The doctor came out then. Mr. Last name? Your mother is asking for you. She says she wants to press charges against your wife for assault. David stood up and wiped his face. The weakness was gone. No, he told the doctor. Tell her I'm not coming in. Tell her I'm busy talking to the police. Sir? David turned to me. Where are the kids? At my sister's. Let's go get them. And then, we're going to change the locks again. We are in the car now. He is driving. He hasn't said a word in 20 minutes. I don't know if our marriage can survive this. I don't know if I can ever forgive him for not believing me until he saw it in black and white. But for the first time in 3 months, we are going home. Alone. I'll update when I know what happens with the legal mess. But for now, she's the hospital's problem. Update 1. I'm posting this from a hotel room because I couldn't stay in that house for another second. After I threatened to call the cops, things went sideways fast. David slept on the couch that night. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. I went downstairs, hoping maybe David had come to his senses and was making a peace offering. Nope. Barbara was at the stove, humming to herself. She had set the table with placemats, which we never use, and was plating food for my kids. Good morning, dear, she said, not even looking at me. David left early for work. He said you were very upset last night, so I told him I'd handle the morning rush. I looked at my kids. My 9-year-old daughter was braiding her hair, and my son was eating in total silence. Barbara, we need to talk about the timeline for you leaving, I said, trying to keep my voice steady in front of the children. She turned around, spatula in hand. Oh, didn't David tell you? I rented out my townhouse. I felt the blood drain from my face. You what? A lovely young couple. They needed a place for 6 months. It seems silly to let it sit empty when I'm going to be here helping you. Helping me? I laughed, but it was a hysterical, jagged sound. You aren't helping me. You are ruining my marriage. Don't speak like that in front of the children, she snapped. Her voice dropped an octave. David is right. You are incredibly unstable lately. Is it? That time of life? I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't even say goodbye to the kids because I knew if I stayed, I would scream things I couldn't take back. I called David from the car. He didn't answer. I called his work line, and finally, he picked up. Did you know she rented her house? I demanded. Yes, he said, sounding exhausted. She needs the money. Her medical bills were high. And honestly, with the way you've been acting, having her there to help with the kids is a godsend. I am their mother. I don't need help. You threatened to call the police on an old woman with a broken ankle, David said coldly. That's not normal behavior. Maybe you should stay with your sister for a few days. Just to cool off. He was kicking me out. My husband was kicking me out of my own house so his mother could play house. I drove to a hotel. I've been here for 2 days. I've texted the kids, but their replies are short. I suspect she's monitoring them. Update 2. I wish I had better news. I really do. I went back to the house yesterday while David was at work and Barbara was at her physical therapy appointment, which David drives her to, of course. I needed more clothes and I wanted to check the mail. My key didn't work. I stood on my own front porch, jiggling the key as panic rose in my throat. I looked through the window. The living room looked different. My throw pillows were gone. The curtains were drawn. I called a locksmith. Since my name is on the deed, he let me in. The house smelled like her. That heavy, powdery floral perfume was everywhere. I went to the living room. My grandmother's antique rocking chair, the one I nursed both my babies in, was gone. In its place was a hideous velvet armchair I recognized from Barbara's house. I ran to the garage. The rocking chair wasn't there. I checked the basement. Nothing. Then I went upstairs to our bedroom. The bed was made, but not how I make it. And on my nightstand, where my book usually sits, there was a pamphlet, Managing Early Onset Dementia and Rage Issues. I felt physically sick. I heard the garage door open. They were home early. I met them in the kitchen. David stopped dead when he saw me. Barbara was leaning heavily on her cane, clutching his arm. You broke in? David asked. It's my house, David. You changed the locks? Mom didn't feel safe, he said. He actually looked me in the eye and said that. She's afraid of you. She thinks you might get violent. Where is my grandmother's chair? I screamed. Barbara whimpered and hid behind David. See? She whispered. She's fixated on objects. It's a symptom. Where is it, Barbara? It had termites, she said. We had to get rid of it. For the safety of the house. It did not have termites. Where is it? The dump, David said. It's gone. Drop it. I looked at my husband. He looked like a stranger. He was protecting this woman who had literally thrown away my family heirloom. I want a divorce, I said. David flinched. Don't say that. I want a divorce, and I want her out. If you divorce me, David said, his voice shaking, I will go for full custody. I have Mom here as a witness to your erratic behavior. I have the texts where you threatened her. You won't see the kids. I left before I did something that would actually prove them right. I'm meeting a lawyer tomorrow. But I did some digging. I called the waste management company for our town. They have no record of a bulk pickup from our address this week. And the dump requires a permit scan. David hasn't been there. The chair isn't at the dump. She's hiding it. Or she sold it. Update 3. This is moving faster than I can process. I met with the lawyer, Sarah. She's a shark. She told me David changing the locks was an illegal eviction and that his threats about custody are mostly hot air, but we need to document everything. She advised me to file for emergency exclusive possession of the home. But while we were filling out the paperwork, I got a notification from our joint bank account. A withdrawal of $5,000. I called David immediately. What did you just spend $5,000 on? Closing costs, he said. What closing costs? Mom sold her townhouse, he said. She didn't rent it. She sold it. She has nowhere else to go. She's moving in permanently. You lied to me. I didn't want you to freak out. She's putting the money from the sale into a trust for the boys. She's doing this for us. I am coming over there right now, I said. And I am bringing the police. Don't you dare, he hissed. The kids are home. I hung up and drove over. I didn't care anymore. When I pulled into the driveway, there was a moving truck. 2 men in a truck. They were unloading boxes. Her boxes. I stormed up the driveway. Barbara was sitting on the front porch, on my porch swing, drinking a glass of iced tea. She wasn't even using her cane. You need to leave, I told the movers. This is not her residence. Stop unloading. The movers looked at David, who was standing in the doorway. Keep going, David said. She doesn't live here anymore. I am on the deed. I yelled. Barbara set down her tea. David, honey, maybe you should call the authorities. She's making a scene in front of the neighbors. I turned on her. You planned this. You faked the ankle injury, didn't you? She smiled. It was a small, tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. You should really get that paranoia checked, dear. It's affecting your skin. I lost it. I grabbed one of the boxes the movers had set down, marked Hummels, and I threw it across the yard. Glass shattered. Assault. Barbara shrieked. She's violent. David grabbed me and physically restrained me. Get out. He roared in my face. Get out before I have you arrested. My kids were watching from the window. My son was crying. I got in my car and drove away. I sat in a parking lot and sobbed for an hour. Then I remembered something. The termites. If they didn't go to the dump, and if she's moving her stuff in, maybe she moved my stuff out to make room. I called around to local storage units. It's a small town. I found one that had a rental agreement under David's name starting 3 days ago. I drove there. I didn't have the code, but I waited by the gate until someone else drove in, and I tailgated them. I found the unit. It had a cheap padlock. I smashed it off with a tire iron from my trunk. I know, breaking and entering, but I didn't care. Inside was my grandmother's chair. My jewelry box. My clothes. And boxes of my kids' toys that Barbara deemed clutter. But there was something else. A stack of file folders on top of the chair. I opened one. It was Barbara's medical records. I sat on the concrete floor and read them. Her ankle wasn't broken. It was a sprain. The surgery never happened. The x-rays in the file were dated 1998. And there was a notebook. In her handwriting, plan for D and, my name, 1. Injury, March 2. Move in, April 3. Irritate, my name, until she snaps, May/June 4. Sell townhouse, June 5. Secure joint account access, July. She had a checklist. She had literally written down a checklist to destroy my marriage. I took photos of everything. I took the notebook. I took the medical file. I'm driving back to the house now. I don't care if the cops are there. I have proof. Update 4. I am shaking so hard I can barely type this. I pulled into the driveway. David's car was there. The moving truck was gone. I walked into the house holding the notebook and the medical file. The door was unlocked. David and Barbara were in the living room. She was crying, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. He was rubbing her back. "I'm back," I said. David stood up, his face red. "I called the police. They're on their way. You are trespassing." "I found the storage unit, David." He froze. "I found the chair. And I found this." I threw the notebook on the coffee table. "What is that?" David asked. "Read it." Barbara lunged for the table. For a woman with a bad leg, she moved like a cobra. She grabbed the notebook. "It's private," she screamed. "It's my diary." "Read the page marked June, David," I yelled. David looked from me to his mother. He looked at the notebook in her hands. She was clutching it to her chest, looking wild-eyed. "Mom?" David said slowly. "Let me see it." "No. She forged it. She's trying to frame me." "Give it to me." David wrestled the notebook from her. He opened it. I watched his eyes scan the page. I watched the color drain from his face. "Irritate until she snaps," he read out loud. "Fake surgery recovery." He looked up at her. You weren't hurt?" "I was lonely," Barbara wailed. "She was taking you away from me. She doesn't love you like I do. She's selfish." "And the ankle?" David asked, his voice trembling. "The surgery I paid for?" "I needed you," she sobbed. David looked at me. He looked absolutely broken. "I kicked you out," he whispered. I defended her." "Yes, you did," I said. Just then, the police arrived. The ones David had called on me. They walked in. "We got a call about a domestic disturbance?" David looked at the officers. Then he looked at his mother. "Yes," David said. "My mother is refusing to leave my home. I'd like her removed for trespassing." Barbara started screaming. She threw herself on the floor, kicking and wailing like a toddler. My heart is stopping." "It's not her heart," I told the officers. "Check her medical file. She's fine." The officers looked at the scene, me standing there with a tire iron, David holding the notebook, and an old woman faking a seizure on the rug. "Ma'am, get up," the officer said to Barbara. She stopped screaming instantly. She stood up, dusted off her skirt, and looked at David with pure venom. "You are an ungrateful son," she spat. "I did this for you." "Get out," David said. "Get out and don't ever call me again." She left. The police escorted her to her car, and she drove away. David collapsed onto the couch and put his head in his hands. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." I didn't hug him. I didn't comfort him. I walked past him and went upstairs to see my kids. They were huddled in my daughter's room. "Is Nana gone?" my son asked. "Yes," I said. "She's gone." "Is she coming back?" "No." I went back downstairs. David was still on the couch, crying. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said to him. He nodded. "I know. I'm going to stay at the hotel tonight with the kids. You stay here. You fix the locks. You get my stuff out of storage. And you start looking for a marriage counselor." "Okay," he whispered. "Anything." I packed a bag for the kids. We are at the hotel now. They are asleep. I feel vindicated, but I also feel empty. I won the war, but the battlefield is a mess. My husband chose me, eventually, but only after indisputable proof. He didn't believe me. He believed the notebook. That's going to take a long time to get over. But for now, the lavender paint is drying in the guest room, and the house is empty of her. And that has to be enough for tonight. Hi there, if you made it so far. Consider dropping a like and maybe subscribing. Thanks. And have a nice one.